Hey everyone, my name is Brad, and I'm doing my oral presentation on tourism and disaster. So, to start off, I kind of want to give some ballpark numbers on how much tourism affects the United States. So, in 2017, tourism brought in $1.7 trillion in revenue and accounts for 11% of all U.S. exports. So, that's a pretty big number. It also brings in 7.8 million jobs dedicated strictly just to the tourism industry, and that is also huge. So not only is it creating jobs, but it's also bringing a massive amount of our income. However, as big as that is, there are other places such as Macau, China. Well, their tourism brings in 47% of their economy. So almost half of Macau's economy in China is based on their tourism industry. So when we talk about natural disasters hitting areas, if a natural disaster were to hit somewhere like that, that impact would be infinitely greater than if it were to hit in the United States. So part of the reason I chose this topic was because I'm from Panama City, Florida. I live there, and obviously Hurricane Michael hit last year, and that was a huge, huge deal because most of Panama City's revenue and income is the tourism industry. We have the sandy beaches. It's a beautiful area. And when Hurricane Michael came in, you'll see some before and after photos. So that's my house before, right? And then that's my house after Hurricane Michael. And you can see it's just the house and the siding. Everything's demolished. And after that, you can see Mexico Beach here is just completely gone. So that was one of the things we were worried about was how is the tourism industry going to be affected? And it was. Our numbers dropped 30% this year for summer. A lot of that was because of lodging. A lot of that was because the beaches weren't as beautiful. The water was a little murky. But a lot of it was lodging, restaurants, just sustainability. A lot of places were gone and people just didn't come down. So it does have a huge effect on an area. Now, while that does cover the bad side of natural disasters with tourism, not all of them have had a completely negative impact. For example, Boscastle, England had a flash flood in 2004, and it destroyed pretty much everything. However, the reconstruction of it actually increased the tourism because buildings were refurbished, rebuilt, the roads were redone, everything looked newer. And that obviously had a positive impact. I would assume nobody wished it would have happened, but it did have a positive impact. So that is one side, but this is a very rare case, and it's not really indicative of all natural disasters. Most of them impact the tourism industry very seriously. However, one of the biggest things that I see people overlook that was kind of interesting that I thought was when in places like Macau, China, for example, when you are leaving to go out of the country and you're in a foreign place for tourism, right, and you're going to see, if there were to be a natural disaster that struck, during that response and recovery phase where communication is poor, not only is your communication now poor, but maybe you don't speak the language, right? A lot of tourists don't speak the language. Maybe you're not unfamiliar with the terrain. You're unfamiliar with how to prepare for a natural disaster in that area. So there are a lot of things to take into account when going to a tourist area is to think about what terrain you're on, what the authorities or the local authorities are going to issue warnings, what the warnings are, and just be familiar. People go on tourist trips to have fun, right? Nobody wants to prepare for a hurricane or an earthquake or anything like that. So it's one of those things to keep in mind when you're mitigating, preparing, and responding to natural disasters is the location you're in. And that pretty much sums up my oral presentation. And thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing your comments.